Hi Josh.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. I'm Gabriela Cowperthwaite, film director, and I think very excited and honored to be interviewing Josh Zeman, director of The Loneliest Whale: The Search for 52. Um, and I wanted to ask you a couple questions. First of all, I feel like I always have to say this when I see a film where I feel like the director just carved out their heart and kind of set it out on a platter, on a filmic platter. And we're like, I'm going to just show you like all my vulnerabilities as a director, how much I care, how much I'm invested, and really kind of left it all out there in this film. And I just always want to congratulate you and sort of any director that does that, because I think it's brave. I think it's brave.
It's a slippery slope, as you know, of course. Sometimes we can overshare, and sometimes, you really need to go for the gold, especially if it's something that you're passionate about,
Mhm.
and it's easier when you're passionate about it.
Mhm.
Um, I wish I didn't have to rip so much of my heart out, but unfortunately, trying to find one whale in an entire ocean is a Herzogian, a Habian quest in the most extremes.
Mhm.
You actually did not see the probably 3 years, three plus years that were also in the previous section. We decided to kind of just minimize that a little bit.
Yeah, well, also I feel like, but it's there. Do you know what I mean? Like when
Yeah,
you see
yeah,
investment, it
yeah,
doesn't have to be an outtake form, or you don't have to sort of explain that. You could just tell from the
yeah.
footage that you do get, and from the idea that this was like a long-term kind of research project. Like you guys, everybody's secretly, we all want to know this, and we all need to tap into this. And
Mhm.
so, like, let's all just get a bunch of money and make this happen. That doesn't happen overnight, you know? So, like, I already, the idea that you've been working on this forever is already baked in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, you want to show how much you care, but in the right way. A lot of times, especially in nature films, people kind of overdo it, and it's a because they care so much about the subject matter. So it's an interesting thing to try and figure out how far do you go, and that was one of the things that I thought you did so well, and I want to just kind of commend you on it, but also like understand that decision, like going in, like of course, right? Famous Ted Hope producer always said, lock them in the first 5 minutes, and you have them for like 45 minutes, and that's something that you did so well. You cared so much about your subjects and the storyline because of how you emotionally did that. Can you talk a little bit about that decision?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like I cared. I was very interested.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it was like they're like what I tell kind of like students or like young filmmakers, whatever, I'm like, all you have to do is have a question. Like,
Mhm.
don't think you have to have sort of a film career. Also, don't even think you have to have like a thesis. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or like
Mhm.
this like perfect arc or whatever in your head. Just have a burning question.
Oh, that's good.
You know what I mean? And you're just
That's
sort of
really
like,
good.
it's like nothing can drive you more passionately than curiosity, and then
Right.
just like I have to unearth this, I have to find out. Now that I know this, I need to know this now. And then you just start digging, especially in documentary, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's what drives us, is that's the one variable I think all documentarians have in common, is curiosity, and kind of being a little bit crazy and like to your own detriment. Do you know what I mean? Like you're gonna not probably make
What do you
very much
mean? I
money,
don't
but
even know what you mean. What do you mean?
what? What are you talking
What?
about? And this kind of goes to the next question. You were asking me about how do you make people care? How do you
Oh
make
yeah, how do you make people care? Well, yeah, no, I mean that's big. That's big.
the big one? And I think it's one that like I get why you're asking that, because I think that's the next step, right? We put it out there, we make the documentary, and then we're just like, wait a second, how to like, and not even like how do you make people watch? Because like that's beyond our control. Like we have no
Sure,
idea. Like
sure,
I don't
sure.
know what makes you turn on that,
Yeah, yeah.
but like for me, and I'm curious about this for you, but like I have realized that like if I'm told to care about something, I won't necessarily, I won't necessarily care. I can't, we're all like an inner adolescent kind of.
Yeah,
And the
sure.
movies
Yep,
sort of
yep, yep.
tell us what to do,
Yep.
and throw in a 1-800 number in your film or whatever. The more you do that, the
Mm-hmm.
more we just kind of like steal up. Like we have to back into caring. We have to back people into caring. In my mind, in some ways, for Blackfish, I was like, I don't need the animal activists to love this. Like they
Right.
already know, right? They already
You've
know.
already got them. So
That's
it's
right.
everybody else. Right. Yeah.
That's right. So if I make a thriller, you know what I mean? If I make something that's just ultimately a mystery and a thriller and it's in there, some there an answer is in there somewhere, maybe I get the other audience. Do you
That's
know?
that's the whole thing. Like a distributor now loves you, like Bleecker Street, because well,
Sure.
but that's the whole thing. It's like it's like if you're like going for the whale crowd, you failed because you've already got them. It's getting
Right.
everybody else, but you did that so effectively, which is
Well,
which
that's
is
nice.
n-
That's nice, but Josh, you did that with this too. So that you did this as long as no, you did, and you'll see. No,
yeah.
you don't think you did. Like
Well, it's not even that. I was just like I was so profoundly moved by the open of your film. Like and I remember like turning to somebody like in that first 5 minutes and being like, "Holy shit." Like this is
oh,
incredible. And at that moment like I was just so in and
right, right.
it's yeah.
But I mean, something interesting about your film was that I am so curious about the idea of this loneliest whale, why that impacted you, and you put this in your film too. But like, what is it about us having to find out about you having to find out why this whale is alone, how this whale is alone?
Mhm.
It's like crushing, right? To
Yeah.
think calls go unanswered. Like, what is that about? What does it say about maybe humanity? But what does that say about you? Like, what were you?
I had done a lot of true crime. I was reaching a certain age. This was my midlife crisis. Maybe, or I had just been through a breakup. There was a couple things going down,
Right,
and
right.
and like that was the entree point, right? But then it's like it's just a mystery, and my question is this whale really lonely? Like,
Yeah.
and why is this story so sticky?
Mhm.
It's interesting. So I'm a filmmaker. I pitch a lot of stories,
Yeah.
every day. That's what I do. And I would say, like, you ever hear the story of this lonely whale that swims to the ocean calling out and never receives a response? And people would grab my arm and be like, no, tell me more. Or they would immediately just start
Right.
crying, or like I have goosebumps, And I was like,
Yeah.
what is the power of that story? Like,
Right. Right.
is,
Right.
is it just you know, humanity's greatest fear to die alone, and that's the mirror. But like, we don't get that way about a turtle, we don't get
Right.
that way about a
Right.
frog,
Right.
it's
Right.
it's a
Right.
whale, and suddenly it's like it's like a mirror that's reflective and also see-through.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
super, it's us, but then it's like supersized because it's a whale, which of course is so big, and so now we're humbled, we're puny, but then it's out in the vastness of the ocean, and
Yeah.
and I think we were trying to reconcile our online lives at that moment in
Yeah.
time. It was a meme
Yeah.
going around,
Yeah. Right.
and so
Right.
I think that there was a lot going on society wise that made me also wonder what was going on. Like originally, the film was starting out as a meditation on loneliness. Like, was the internet making us lonely? So like, I had interviewed some of like the most famous loneliness experts around. But
Right.
then I was like, whales, they're so
Ah,
cool. you know
right. Right.
songs of the humpback whale and that whole thing and whale song,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a mystery. And then I was like, this is just too cool not to kind of like go down this route. And then it was like, hey, do you think we could actually find this whale?
Yeah.
And the minute the scientists started laughing us out of the room was the minute I was like, aha, let's
Let's do
do that.
it. Let's for sure do this. This is exactly like Yeah. And did you find like, what was your feeling? Tell me just like your, and I think you sort of film it really well, but like, what was your feeling when you found you found out that he or she might not be the only one?
Oh my
I don't,
God. That at that
I don't
point
want
I
to
was a mess.
spoil like anything, right? But it's just like, I'm going to say it like it's a tease.
Sure, sure,
What
sure,
if this
sure.
whale
Y-
might was not the only one?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at that point I was a mess. I literally was like, I'm glad the camera cut because you would have seen a mess of a human being.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
but the the and then there's the other part, right, where the woman's like, "Well, we think the whale's dead."
Ugh. And it was just, but it's just so cathartic. It was just sort of like, okay, there's so many ways that it could have ended, right? Like it could have been
Yeah.
like there's so many ways. And
Yeah.
like to have, I guess, the guts, to imagine imagine an unfulfilling ending, like where you don't get your answers like that, or you don't get like something that just, I guess, sort of tells you something maybe somewhat hopeful about the world. Like there's a million
Right.
ways it could have ended.
Right. It was going to be like, it's good that there's still mysteries in the ocean.
We are human beings and we can't know everything.
Everything. But
Right,
the gold is in the story. Yes, like we went through all those things. Like we're like,
right,
okay,
right,
we're gonna have this version, we'll have that version. Um,
right, right.
and it's like, there were like a lot of like late night, like, well, let's do the whole thing in reverse, like how do we break the third act? How do we break the three-act structure and flip the journey on its head?
Right, right, right.
It was touch and go as well there for a while.
You sort of didn't need it. I mean, it was like it delivered itself to you. Like it was
Yeah,
just like,
yeah. And also it was like that is like when we thought about it, we're like, you know what? In some ways, like that's the best ending possible. But then other people were still like, no, you didn't find the whale. No, you it's still like it's okay.
yeah, no, I don't know. I think as a human being who like the pursuit of it, like in the idea of like not just finding this whale, but sort of like the idea of in our whatever, in our human experience, curing loneliness,
Yeah,
and figuring out a little more about loneliness in ourselves. And like you said, what it was like to have an online world, but sort of like cracking open loneliness a little bit and what that means to us, and realizing that was kind of, if that was the impetus of going about something like this,
hmm,
like in some like level, at some level, then that was a full circle. That like was so
totally,
fulfilling,
totally.
like
It's true. It's people like, yeah, that was the other thing, like learning how to make the film. You learn how to make the film as you're making the film, or like you're learning about this film. And so we were
right,
learning like people don't really like to talk about loneliness. Like that's why we have the metaphor of the whale. Like that's
right,
why that metaphor. But people don't like it when you're like, let me tell you for an hour and a half about loneliness. People are
right,
like,
right, right, right,
click.
right. Got it.
They
Yes.
shut
You're just
right
like,
off.
okay, yeah, well, enough already. Yeah,
Right, I was like, I got 5 minutes, but no, I don't really
right.
want you to throw all my personal problems back at me for an hour and a half.
Yeah. I mean, and you could just go on, right? We're weird human beings. I was told we're primates, and so we learn in our
Hmm.
minds. We learn by seeing, by touching,
Yep.
which is why SeaWorld was so seductive,
Yep.
because like you're looking at this whale, you're looking close up.
Right,
And
right, really close. Like you're like, oh, how does he have all these teeth and this nose and this mouth? Yeah.
exactly. And the weird thing is, Josh, I don't know if you know this or if you felt this before, but when you go to those zoos and you go, like, the first thing like a little kid will do when they see an ape or a gorilla or anything is knock on the glass.
Of course. Yeah.
And they're not saying, it's not like I'm so fascinated by seeing you, but what you're saying is like, I so want you to see me. Like
Right.
we're crazy species.
I
Like
want
we
to elicit a reaction out of you.
totally, like nothing's more electrifying than seeing like a whale, a dolphin in their eye, like, and you're like,
Recognize you. Oh, right, 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 right.
right? And same
Right.
with monkeys and stuff. Like that's why we're staring at them. We're just like,
Right.
oh my God, like look at me, look at
Recognize
me.
me. Well, that's
Totally.
the whole thing. I mean, that's part of the whole thing with the whale. Like, it's not about a lonely whale. It's about us and our
Totally.
and that's the whole thing. The whale's not lonely, we are. We're projecting. But
Yes.
that is the whole debate about anthropomorphizing, number
Right.
one.
Right.
And like these scientists get pissed. They're like, "How can you call this thing a lonely whale?" I was like, "Listen, I'm not calling it a lonely whale. Like the world has called it a lonely whale.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like that is our human nature. We are the worst. We are so self-absorbed and so self-centered. And guess what? You are never going to not have that. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
is human nature.
Totally.
And so in some ways, can you embrace it and turn it on its head? Which is, I
Yeah.
think, what we tried to do in the movie, which
Yeah.
is like, is it us? Is it them? Is it us? Is it them? What is, and then you ask the smart questions. Can a whale even actually feel loneliness? So then you go in and talk about spindle cells and things like that. And then you're actually having a real kind of conversation about like physiology and things like that.
Totally. Totally. That's what's so fascinating. Did you feel, well, I guess what the impetus and everything about you going into this film and what made you want to make this film? What do you think it boils down to?
It was other people's reactions to the story. Like I was like, what is it? Like I'm a storyteller, right? And so like I remember like I was like, I want to do whale stories all the time because I've never had this reaction to a story before, and B, like when I thought we were getting like 3 million like at that, like right off the bat. And I was like, and I've never gotten so much money so quickly. Now that actually didn't happen, we lost all that money, and but like
Right.
it's like I want to make a film about something that elicits a reaction from people and why. And I had my own experience with whales. Like I grew up and had that kind of like 2 years before the mass. Like I wanted to be the oceanographer. I wanted to be Jacques Cousteau. So like I felt that,
Wow.
yeah, like I felt that mystery, but like we don't go on quests anymore. Number one, all we think all the answers are right on our computers. Like, so let's go on a real search, not a Google search. Let's go on a real search. And like I have a huge affinity for that old whaling stories. I mean, like here's an opportunity to go out to search for one unique whale. Sounds like another big American story I might know. Let's,
Right. Right.
like,
Right.
like, like, why, if that's the thing, then go for it because, like, history might tell you that that's a good storyline.
Right.
Now,
Right. Right.
what I
Yes.
didn't know was how Ahabian it would turn out to be. Like, that wasn't planned. Like, I could do with a little less connection there. But, like, don't
This
get
is
the,
the pain.
yeah, don't get
Exactly.
the
Like you're
law.
like
Like,
you're like it's
literally.
so much easier to read Moby Dick than to actually try and raise some money for a freaking thing and
like,
do the thing. Right.
like it was to the point where I was in the the stages of death where you negotiate with God. First you deny and then you'll negotiate with God, like in
Right.
making the movie and all those things. I was like, I swear to God, I'll be so much better person if you just let me finish this movie. Like like
Like, I
it
swear.
got that, like this film became my white whale and it got that bad. And I'm used to like 10, a documentary filmmaker, like I'm kind of used to the 10-year to clip at this point, but
Right.
so
No, I know. I
it's,
know.
I didn't know whether to cut bait because after 4 years, they're like, look, we can't find this whale. We think this whale's dead. And it's like, and if the Navy isn't going to help you, you're done.
Yeah.
Like it's out in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's not like something's going to happen. So
Yeah.
I was like, I really want to stop and cut bait after 4 years of trying to find this whale. I can't, you
No,
know.
you can't. You can't. No, it's so beautiful. I hope everybody sees this.
Oh, thank you.
Um, I found it very like just like heartwarming and human. And again, I just like felt like um I was completely in. Like I was on your quest.
Oh, that's
Like,
good.
and also not knowing if there would be, not even imagining what the answer could be. Like, what would I have liked to have seen? I didn't know, which
Yeah.
is like the mark of a great quest. Do you know what I
Oh, right,
mean?
right, right. Like, you have no
Actually,
idea
don't,
what's gonna, right, yeah.
no conclusion. I have no idea what happens with these whales and what they're like, what the end goal should be. So it's just, such an honor to be talking to you.
Oh, same here.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about the film?
Just that it was, whales are cool.
Whales are freaking cool,
They're
dude. Like
totally
forget
cool.
forget finding aliens or those weird crazy boxes that we can't figure out what they're doing flying in the sky right now. Like
Yeah. Well,
forget that, dude. Like those are the aliens right now.
exactly. Those are the aliens, and there's so many more mysteries. Like if like when I speak to kids now, and they're like, "Well, like, are you gonna make a true crime?" And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna make movies about science because science is cool, number one,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
science is mystery in like tenfold. So
Totally. Totally.
science, make movies about the mysteries of science.
Totally. So gratifying. So gratifying. And it grows your brain. You could feel it,
Totally.
you know? Genius. Well, thank you all to the gang over at Bleecker. You guys
Yes.
are amazing. I miss you. You guys worked on, you distributed Megan Levy. And Josh, it was just such an absolute pleasure. I cannot wait to tell people about this film.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much.